What's up? We live today. We are live today. And this is already the 6th live stream, which is kind of crazy. Might have to slow down on the live streams. What's up, Joey? Welcome back. Sorry, the chat's over there. I don't know if you're actually over there. What's up, Chris Kitchen? Welcome back to the live stream. Chef Curry, how's it going? General Joey. All right, Joey. It's on you, man. It's on you. So, I know a lot of you were asking if I was going to read any of the Age of Republic comics. I did actually read one. I read the Count Dooku one, which I think is the most recent one to come out, if I'm correct. But it was pretty good. So I'm not trying to spoil anything, but there's like tiger people now in Star Wars. It's great. It's great. If you ever want to see like a tiger Jedi, go read it. It's fantastic. And it's a good, like, in all seriousness, it's a good whole story. So Dooku is my fave of the Age of Republic issues. Oh, well, that's unfortunate. I read the best one first. So hopefully the other ones are pretty good. So, I mean, from what I've heard, it sounds like they're pretty decent. So Dooku in general is just one of my favorite characters. So he thinks he's so smart. They think their brain's so big. And he got his brain severed from his shoulders. So, okay. Oh, see, there's 2 of you on right now. Anakin's story was a bit lacking, and Maul's is a continuation of his solo issue back in 2017, but the rest are very solid. Okay, that's good to keep in mind. Yeah, I gotta read the Maul miniseries too. That's one I haven't read. Like I said, I got a lot catching up to do with the comics. I'm trying to keep up with the books, and that's what's hard. There's a lot of books to read, so. And when you're in school, you already have to read other books, like textbooks. It's hard to find some time to read the regular books for fun, you know. So I am making good progress through Thrawn Alliances. I'm about 60% of the way done. So we're getting there. So, and then I'm going to try to pick up Queen's Shadow ASAP. Because that comes out, I think, is it tomorrow? So March 6th. I always thought it was March 6th, but maybe it is tomorrow. Speaking of Dooku, what is your favorite moment with him? So it's kind of sad because, again, my favorite Dooku moment in the movies has to be Dooku getting his head cut off. Not because he's getting his head cut off, but just because of the story and how Dooku, you can tell that Dooku has just been completely played. And I talked about this last live stream, but just like the look on his face when Sidious is just like, kill him now. And he's just like, what? Like, just realized, oh, I just got played hard. I think it's hilarious. And then, but it builds on Sidious's, true evil in a sense that he's, Sidious really doesn't care about anybody other than himself, of course. So, are you excited for Master and Apprentice? I think it's out next month. Yes, Master Apprentice is out in April. And yes, I am excited for that book. And so I want to read Queen's Shadow. So that'll give me like a month to read that, which will be pretty tough to do. So then I can read Master and Apprentice in April. So that's the plan. If midichlorians were introduced in A New Hope, do you think there would have been a controversy about it? Joey, probably not, because if they were introduced in A New Hope and A New Hope was all the rage that it was back in 1977, then people probably wouldn't have made such a big deal about it. They probably would have considered it part of just the original story. So, I mean, because the whole reason, or the whole basis for hating midichlorians was because of A New Hope and the original trilogy as a whole and the story that they presented. So if it was part of that story, then I don't see any reason that people would hate on it. I wish that they left the Dooku bust scene in Attack of the Clones. Yeah, it would have been cool for them to talk about the Lost 20 in Attack of the Clones, but I know they talk about it in Clone Wars. So Jocasta Nu, by the way, is a badass. Like I said, I haven't read fully the Vader comics, but I've kept up with some of the stuff that's going on in the new Vader comics. And Jocasta Nu, man, Jocasta Nu, she can kick some butt. Because I know Attack of the Clones is like, oh, she's this old librarian lady, you know, she's probably just making sure that people don't have overdue books. How much blame do you think Yoda should get for what happened to the prequels? Not much at all. I think the whole CGI Yoda, that whole thing was just, it's probably one of the complaints I hear the least. It's like one of those like side complaints that people, when they want to find something else to complain about, they'll complain about it. I think as a whole, it probably wasn't, it was part of a larger issue, which was the overuse of CGI thing. So I think Yoda was fine. If you mean as Yoda as a character, then I had no problem with Yoda. I thought he was just like you'd expect Yoda to be. I mean, the whole point of the prequel trilogy was to show just how ignorant the Jedi were. Well, I guess one of the points of the prequel trilogy was to show, just show how the Jedi just could not adapt to a changing environment, and were also somewhat kind of corrupt in a sense. I don't think so, Joey. I even think if the prequels were made first, they would have gained the same fame. Yeah, pretty much. Jocasta Nu is awesome. The author of the 25-issue Vader series is a huge fan of Lucas and the prequels, and a lot of choices made in the comic were to respect Lucas. So this is when I first started this channel, my very first video was the prequel references in The Force Awakens. Like a very short video. It's like 3.5 minutes or something like that, because there's really not a lot. So think back to that time when The Force Awakens just hit theaters, and think about what was coming out with Star Wars for Star Wars at the time. And if you can remember that, you'll realize that there's like almost no prequel stuff at all at that point in time. And one of the things I said in the video was that I hope we would get more prequel stuff as they introduce more Star Wars content and people get comfortable with it, which they did. I think Rogue One was really took a huge stride in that sense with the movies. So, I mean, there were some other things that some of the earlier prequel stuff, like the Son of Dathomir comic, that was already out before The Force Awakens, but there's the Obi-Wan and Anakin comic series, 5 comic miniseries, which I have read. That's a good one. Oh, what's up, Batsy? Welcome back to the live stream. So yeah, Anakin and Obi-Wan, the comic 5-series comic arc is good. That was one of the earlier ones, earlier prequel trilogy, direct prequel trilogy content media thing. But then when we got Rogue One was honestly more connected to the prequels than I anticipated. So when I saw the flashback scene on Coruscant in Rogue One, I was like freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, it's Coruscant! Ah, that's so cool. And then of course, if you read, I keep mentioning it every freaking live stream, but if you read Rogue One Catalyst, you'll understand a little bit more of the flashback scene in Rogue One and stuff like that, and kind of where the characters were at. Plus, that book takes place between the end of Episode 3 and right after the Jedi Purge. So it's a great book. Again, read it if you haven't read it. It's very good. So there's my little rant there for you. Mace got a comic too under Disney. But that's like one of the newer ones. I'm trying to think of like what we had what came out before Rogue One. And I don't know if maybe Anakin and Obi-Wan did come out before or after Rogue One. I can't remember for sure. But I'm just trying to think back to some of the earlier Star Wars canon content that was prequel related. I think also the one I can never remember the name of it. The Asajj Ventress and Quentin Voss novel. I can never remember the freaking name of it. I think that came out pretty early as well. And Bail Organa, very underrated character. And I love, well, Curse Kitchen, you are correct. Bail Organa is extremely underrated as a character, but I think they did a really good job with him in Rogue One, especially when they introduced him and they played the Star Wars. I think it was just the original Star Wars theme they played when he walked out from the shadows or whatever. I also freaked out when he showed up on screen. That was pretty cool. I also liked the reference they made to Obi-Wan when Bail was talking with Mon Mothma about it, or about his Jedi friend. He also mentioned the Clone Wars and stuff like that, and the Jedi Purge, which was pretty cool. So Rogue One is just so well tied. I mean, it's not only well tied into the original trilogy, but it's also well tied to the prequel trilogy. In a sense, though, the prequel trilogy was obviously like 19 years prior to the events of Rogue One. So, Dark Disciple, thank you. Thank you, Betsy. I wish he would have dueled Grievous in that comic. Yeah, that would have been pretty cool. I think just because Mace walked that fine line between, the light and the dark. I think that's what I liked most about Mace Windu, was that he just he was able to kind of tap into the dark side. And I know that there was some thing with the old Legends lightsaber forms. I think they've canonized all the lightsaber combat forms or whatever. I don't remember them all, but I remember I think was his form 7. Maybe it was the one where you walk, you tap into the dark side, but you're able to stay into the light side or something like that. He was the only one that's able to use it, type of thing. So I think that's kind of, I mean, you see it in the movies. That's kind of cool, I think. What are your thoughts on Padme dying after giving birth to the twins, and Leia's comments about her in Return of the Jedi? I mean, it's it is kind of strange, when Leia's I kind of remember my mother, and she was sad, apart from each other, and so they're gonna kind of develop through the Force a little differently. And look at the Last Jedi and that. Luke is more of a traditional Force user in the sense of a Jedi. He used the Force to manipulate things, objects and stuff like that. But if you look at Leia in Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, in some of the original trilogy movies, you see that she has a very strong ability to connect with people through the Force, which we haven't seen as much with Luke in the movies. So that's kind of where I approach it, that issue. So yeah, thank you, Betsy. I mean, it pretty much just explained what I was talking about. But I think for Leia, it's much stronger for her. She is much more sensitive to those things, For Pod. So yeah, I thought it was is it Vapid or Vapod, or I don't remember how to pronounce it. That Death and Twins vision has a more mythological component to it. And the scene where he leaves for Alderaan is sad and poignant, knowing his fate. Yeah, that's also obviously when Bail leaves and goes to Alderaan, it's obviously pretty sad. Didn't get it, the see, I don't remember if this one is canon, but there's there's a comic scene or something like that where he's there. I think it is canon, where he's on Alderaan and you can see the laser coming right at Alderaan. Got more prequel figs this week. Did you get the Kiadi Mooney figure you were talking about last week, Batsy? Also, too, speaking of the Padme dying thing, what are your thoughts on the will to live stuff? Because I know a lot of people are like, how did she just die? After being a completely healthy person. I mean, for the most part, as we know, it was a Force thing. Sidious and his manipulation. So Disney is making more prequel toys, or are you collecting older toys? Yes, and his saber blade broke. Uh-oh. Coyote Moody's saber blade broke? You need to get some clones so you can stage the his Order 66 death. You need to get some of the clone trooper clone marines or whatever they call those. Whatever they call those guys. I think there's like something different now in canon. I just remember them from Battlefront. They were Battlefront 2, the old one. They were the clone commanders or whatever, the heavy gunner people. It's probably the droid not understanding the Force. Curse Kitchen, I think you just summarized that probably in the best, like in a single sentence. That's probably the best summary you could probably ever like give for that scene. This is one of the real instances of unclear writing. It was not so obvious. I think Curse Kitchen, it's kind of building off your point. I think a lot of issues that people have with the prequels is them not understanding a lot of the symbolism behind it. And I know it's kind of like sad, but a lot of people just don't get the metaphors in the prequels, so or understand that things have deeper meaning other than just being there. So I mean, I'll go back to the trade negotiations thing again, because people are like, why are there trade negotiations? Why is this a thing in the prequels? It's so stupid. But if you have to look deeper than that, you have to be like, why is this going on? Why is there a trade boycott on Naboo? Who are the big key players here? You have to look at those things. You can't just be like, what is this doing here? How is this helping the story? Blah, blah, blah. And then not, try to think critically about it or dig deeper. Death through sorrow is a very real and scary thing. I've seen it twice in my life. Oh my gosh, man. Almost 3 times a friend of mine had to wear a metal chest plate to keep his heart from stopping after he witnessed a death in his family. I'm sorry, KX. That's really sad. But yeah, I mean, when people, when people suffer heartbreak, I mean, you look at like Carrie Fisher's mom. She passed away not long after Carrie did, and we never know how much of that is due to Carrie passing away and stuff like that. But you can only wonder, right? It's just kind of too close, to be a coincidence. I believe the Force chokes cannot be detected by technological means, kind of like Voldemort killing his family with magic in his youth, undetectable by Muggle technology. Yeah, I mean, like they can't. No one can tell that she's being choked unless she's like, oh, I'm being choked, type of thing. So, although I think there's that choke is more. I mean, it's a symbol for Anakin turning into Darth Vader, on a more surface level. But I think there's a little bit more to it than that, in a sense. Like, obviously, she like collapsed after that. I think that was the tipping point for Padme dying. I think, in my opinion on this, is that Sidious pretty much like just drained her, towards the end of the Clone Wars or whatever, drained her life force or using the Force, and then obviously I don't think he could just like drain it all or something and just like kill her off, but just like to weaken her enough, and then Anakin would come in with that final blow, of anger and kind of put the or what is it, the straw that breaks the camel's back thing. So her last words clearly stated that she really wasn't giving up. Yes, Curse Kitchen. The whole point was that Padme was supposed to be, represent the hope, and that, Anakin is still good. Whereas everyone else was completely lost all faith in him. Obi-Wan lost all faith. Yoda lost all faith, and that's the thing. You go back and watch Empire Strikes Back, A New Hope, and Return of the Jedi, and you look or try to understand how Obi-Wan and Yoda talk about Vader or Anakin, and understand that they're pretty much like, he's done, like he's gone for, he's lost. But Luke says no, like he's still good. We can bring him back to the light side. He goes against what they say, too, which I think is interesting, but also shows that some of the flaws of the Jedi didn't really get themselves mended after the Jedi Purge. Haha, politics flesh out the galaxy and make it feel lived in. Yeah. I'm collecting older toys. What happened, ironically enough, to Debbie Reynolds after Carrie's death. That's Joey. That's what I was talking about. It's a similar thing. take death after sorrow very seriously since I've had to witness it. It's disappointing that so many people just dismiss it and don't recognize it's a real threat. Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with like stress. Like when people are under a lot of stress, we don't realize how much like of a toll that takes on our body and stuff like that. So, I mean, this is kind of me going on a limb, but obviously the Clone Wars was very stressful, especially for someone like Padme, who's very much a diplomat and didn't want war in the first place, and now she got to go manage this whole shabacle, or because people couldn't talk or whatever, use diplomacy. So I'm sure she was obviously very stressed out, especially because the Jedi Temple was on fire and she was worried about Anakin being being in there at the time. So it's just, and then Obi-Wan comes to talk to her, and she Obi-Wan's like, he's evil, he's bad, he went to the dark side, he killed younglings, and she doesn't know what to believe or who to believe. Oh man, you probably don't want to be Padme. That's all I'm saying. At the end of Revenge of the Sith, probably don't. So, breath is life, and Anakin is trying to grab it and control it. Another good way to put that, cursed kitchen. Don't give Sidious too much credit. According to the Clone Wars, Palpatine had many setbacks, but as a Sith, he adapted to the situation. Yeah, I think like Sidious's plan was not fully perfect, or it wasn't watertight. I don't think he anticipated Anakin showing up at all. I mean, like at all. I mean, he became Chancellor, but then all of a sudden, this really talented young boy shows up named Anakin, and then I think he's kind of cultivated him in the sense that like he wasn't like, okay, so the chosen one's going to show up at the Jedi, just show up and become a Jedi, and then I'm going to corrupt him to the dark side, and then we'll have the most powerful Sith lords that there's ever been. I don't think that was his plan, but it just kind of like fell into place, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to try to coax him into it." So, and he was very vulnerable. So that's the whole reason why Sidious went after him, was because of his background and his age, and his attachment to or desire for wanting family and connection. He took advantage of that, which is what makes it really sad, because Sidious basically took advantage of a kid who just wanted to feel connected and have a family and stuff like that, feel loved or whatever, and then basically destroyed his life, and then bound him in slavery to the dark side. So it's pretty sad. I don't think he caused Padme's death, but certainly used it to his advantage. Obviously, yeah. I think even if he didn't have a hand in her death, I think he was aware that, Anakin's Force visions were likely to come true, and that he could play the situation out for his own gain. Padme witnessed the rise of the Empire, though thought her husband had died and gave birth to an extra child. As throughout Revenge of the Sith, Anakin and Padme only thought they were having one child. Padme went through a lot in those moments. I wasn't that big of a Clone Wars fan, but the episode where Anakin kills Padme ex-boyfriend. Can I never remember his name? Because I just did the Clone Wars season 6 video, and he's in a couple of those episodes. Yeah. I watched the Clone Wars. You can kind of see Anakin just slowly give in more into his anger. So in the EU, Palpatine only killed Plagueis after he discovered Anakin at the end of the Phantom Menace. That's when he killed Plagueis. He knew he wouldn't need him anymore. Yeah, wasn't it like? Was it directly after the Phantom Menace? Because I thought I heard that when he killed him, it was like before he showed up on Naboo after the Battle of Naboo. So like after he walks out the shuttle and tells Anakin, we're going to watch your career with great interest, that he killed that's after he killed Plagueis or something like that. So there's a lot of really deep symbolism, very good symbolism in Revenge of the Sith. Well, the prequels is all, but Revenge of the Sith is just very ripe with that stuff. So personally couldn't remember, but I know it was only after he found Anakin. Yeah, so I don't think it's probably I don't think it really matters too much when it was. I think I also may have heard that it was like after or like it was before he became chancellor. But so then when he comes in and he's like, "Oh, I've been elected chancellor," or whatever, and Queen Amidala leaves to go back to Naboo. I think that I also heard that was like when it happened, was before then. Do you think the future of Star Wars is bleak? Many have declared the franchise dead after Last Jedi. We'll see what happens with Episode 9. I think Episode 9 is gonna be good. So, I mean, I also liked Last Jedi too. So, I mean, that's a whole nother thing we've discussed quite thoroughly. But I do think they need to take a break. I think that with the TV shows coming out, I think if you kind of just have like a TV show, a couple books, and some comics coming out, throughout the next couple of years, I think that's plenty. Give us, some time to adjust, and then bring out one of the new trilogies, like the Rian Johnson trilogy or the Weinoff and whatever, I can't remember the dude's name, the Game of Thrones people, their trilogy. So what are your thoughts on the Lucas method of killing characters who do not appear in the OT, as opposed to Disney's refuse to kill certain characters and save them for later off screen? I've never actually thought of it this way. Lucas' method of killing characters who do not appear in the original trilogy, as opposed to Disney's refuse to kill certain characters and save them for later off screen. You want to give me like a good example of that, Betsy? Because I think if you give me an example, I'll get a better idea. I just think that it should stop. There will be a huge lack of materials within a movie. Yeah, I think if there's any movies going forward should be anthology movies. I mean, I think they are going to be anthology movies, but I think for me, my favorite movies have been Rogue One and Solo, and I think that I'd like to see them continue those, but I don't want them every year. I would like, especially after Episode 9. I just think we need a couple of years. So, I mean, people will, if you get like a 5-year break from Star Wars, I mean, people will be clamoring for another movie again after a while. So, I mean, it's gonna, you'll be on the other side of the band camp after a couple of years. So, at least I know I would be. So, but honestly, like the books and the comics and TV shows, that alone is enough to satisfy me. Especially right now, as it's kind of like a more slow time in Star Wars. So, but things are going to pick up as soon as Star Wars Celebration happens next month. So, and I don't know if you guys heard, but I guess they're going to be doing a lot of, or talking a lot in detail about the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order video game. So I think that'll be cool. Hopefully they'll introduce us to like the main character and stuff, and then kind of give us an idea of what's going on. What's your stance on Attack of the Clones? Underrated, or is the hatred justified? Okay, so I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Lamry? I'm sorry if I got that wrong. But thank you for joining the live stream, by the way. My stance on Attack of the Clones is that, so when I was very little, I did not like Attack of the Clones as much as I liked Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith. But as I've gotten older, I've kind of come to understand it at a deeper level. And honestly, I really love it. My favorite part of it is the whole Obi-Wan looking for Kamino, and just kind of like this mystery thing of like, oh, look, there's the, clone army that someone, happened to make for us in advance of this war that we are now basically, that's basically about to happen. So, I've come to enjoy it more as an adult. I'll say that. So, and I would say it is more underrated. So it is probably the cringiest movie if you're like, looking for like rough dialogue and stuff like that, because obviously there is some rough dialogue in the movie. But if you can look past that, I think it's a very good movie. It's not perfect though. Not perfect. None of the Star Wars movies are perfect in any way. So we'll just leave that there. So Jango Fett, Mace Windu, Grievous, most Jedi and Sith characters are dead by New Hope for dramatic effects, less continuity from what I see. So Django Fett, I think obviously kind of has. I think George was right to kill off those characters, especially all the ones that you named, because they all kind of had a point or like a purpose that was means to an end. So Django Fett obviously was there to introduce Boba Fett, or why Boba Fett existed, and the clone, be the clone template. Although that's more of a prequel trilogy thing, but really his primary purpose was to explain the origin of Boba Fett. So, and obviously he wasn't around, so he was not Boba Fett himself. So, he had to kick the bucket. Mace Windu, I think Mace Windu was kind of he was the Jedi. He was supposed to be the Jedi that just did not like Anakin. Period. Just didn't, like I said, didn't trust him. Whatever. I think he was supposed to be like the Jedi that, again, meddled in the dark side a little bit. Was a little bit more emotionally driven, but and also I think if you had just Yoda, right? You had just Yoda, but he can't. I guess I think he wanted somebody else also to battle Sidious, or at least to go up against Darth Sidious, besides Yoda. So, and then Grievous was supposed to be kind of like the pre-Vader, like, cyborg, more man than machine type, or more machine than man type of thing. Just kind of like symbolism in a sense to show like, this is what Darth Vader will become type of thing. Do you think Barriss Offee is the seventh sister Inquisitor? I could definitely see that. I kind of have wondered that, but I don't think it's true, but I think it would make for some really good headcanon. So they need to explain her story, or finish her story. Excuse me. And maybe they'll wrap it up in the Clone Wars. Excuse me again. Ooh, got the burps. Maybe they'll wrap it up in the Clone Wars, the new season, but her story is still unfinished, so there's stuff to learn. Underrated, all three films are, along with Return of the Jedi. Yeah, Return of the Jedi is another one of the underrated films. Again, people complain about the Ewoks in that movie, and I'm like, why? Why do you care? Why do you care so much about these Ewoks? Like, how is this ruining your life? Just like chill. It's a movie. Ay. And I think with a lot of you guys like Return of the Jedi as your favorite OT film. I think that's just because I just feel like in general a lot of prequel fans like Return of the Jedi as like their favorite OT movie. So it has flaws, but I do think that it has very much to offer. It suffers the problem of being a middle film with the weird pacing. Yeah, I mean, that's Cursed Kitchen. You just keep saying these things. Great. But I would agree in terms of like, it's kind of like, I mean, they have to set up the Clone Wars. They didn't really have the Clone. Well, I mean, I guess they had the Clone Wars TV series, but they just had to set up a lot of things in that movie. So, I mean, really the whole point of it was just to get a lot of things established, like, where do the clones come from? Kind of set up, how does Anakin get a turn to the dark side type of thing. Stuff like that. So I think it's just more of like, they gotta set things up. That's really what Attack of the Clones is. Barriss will be an Inquisitor in the new Order 66 Jedi game you mentioned. Batsy, that's a smart move. I think it's actually could very well be true. I mean, like, I don't know, but I think it seems like a great move. And I think if you were working for EA or in the writing team on that game and you brought that up, I think that would probably be a very popular idea. So we'll have to wait and see. Django is better than Boba. I would agree, Hearts and Ewoks. I like Django. I think he was a much better gunslinger. I think Boba was just kind of more of a savage and like a, just kind of hate-driven, like just obliterate you type of person. Obviously, he liked to disintegrate people because Vader, had to tell him like no disintegrations or whatever. So I think like Django was a little bit more classy in a sense, whereas Boba was just kind of like, my dad is dead and I'm angry and I'm going to kill everybody because he's dead, type of thing. I mean, you look at like Boba in the Clone Wars TV series, and you just like look at his face the whole time. He's just like upset, like frowning, it just very pissed off all the time. So I think it just comes down to a difference of attitude. I've always felt like the dialogue was written a certain way on purpose. You'll notice characters like Palpatine and Yoda have superb dialogue, while characters like Anakin do not. Well, and that's the other thing, KX. That's a good point. Like, a lot of people complain about the dialogue for, some characters, but they don't complain about the dialogue for other characters. So it's like, if the dialogue really as a whole in the movie is bad, then like, why is it only bad for some characters and good for others? I mean, maybe it has to do with, what's going on in the movie. Maybe George Lucas just isn't good at writing for characters who are, falling in love or something. I don't know. Again, I like to chalk it up to Anakin just being awkward and not having any social skills. So this is a conscious choice, as Anakin is a slave child forced to suppress his emotions. He's possessive and unsure when it comes to talking to Padme, so he comes off as creepy as he naturally would. Yeah, I mean, this guy is basically like set up to be like the worst, like the least sociable person in the whole galaxy. I mean, he was a slave, for 9 years. Then he was put into in essentially a monastic order, where he was told to suppress his emotions. And now all of a sudden he's experiencing emotions, and these can't quite just be, thrown under the rug, or as all his other ones have been able to do. So love is one of those feelings where it's like, it's not, a lot of times you can kind of just tuck emotions away and just kind of ignore them. But like, love is one of those things that it's just like, you can't ignore that. Like, you can't just be like, and let it go. Like, it's a really tough emotion to deal with. So, I mean, like, I feel like in my personal experience, I can understand Anakin being awkward and like not knowing how to express those emotions, So when Dooku speaks, however, you get a sign of respect and wisdom. I don't think Lucas writes bad dialogue so much as he knows how the characters should and should not speak. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, because I mean, Dooku's obviously pretty suave, so with his speaking. So in the new canon, Boba accidentally disintegrated a bounty hunter, and Vader was less than pleased. SMH. I mean, maybe that's why, but I think I really think that Boba was more hate driven as a character, just driven by anger. So, do you believe the outcome of Anakin versus Obi-Wan would have changed if the battle wasn't on Mustafar, or was Obi-Wan have a technical advantage destined to subdue Anakin's powerhouse style of combat? Obviously, the battlefield is an important part of any battle, whether that's a lightsaber battle or or just a blaster battle or whatever. Obviously, I think the whole reason why they were on Mustafar was for the symbolism of the dark side, and it was just very volcanically active. It was dark, blah, blah, blah. If they weren't on Mustafar, however, in my opinion, I think that Obi-Wan still would have found a way to best Anakin, because the whole idea is that when you're into the dark side, you're powerful, you're emotionally driven, you're driven by hate, but that also, because you're so impulsive, I think also makes you susceptible to mistakes. And it's like in sports when people try to force things. Like if you like watch like soccer or football, they try to sometimes, like, you're just so frustrated, you just try to force a pass in there, even though it's going to get picked off by the defender or something like that. That's kind of how I look at it. So I think, like, either way, Obi-Wan he was on the light side, he had a more clear head, so I think he would have been able to find a way to best Anakin, probably no matter where they actually fought. So people complain about Star Wars becoming too kid-friendly. It was always that way from the start of Empire of Dreams documentary pointed out how many of the fans were kids. Go back to Star Wars Celebration, the last one 2 years ago, the 40th anniversary panel or whatever. And listen to George Lucas. I mean, he literally says Star Wars is for the kids. Um, I think he does a really good job of integrating things into the movie for adults. That's why I think a lot of us are fans. But I think for the most part, when people become fans of Star Wars, they're younger. So, but as you get older, I mean, they're still fun to watch, and as adults, we can enjoy them. We need to not nitpick these movies, and inspect every little detail. I mean, we're looking at, like, obviously you want to be thorough, and you want to find symbolism in movies, but you don't find symbolism by looking through a microscope at the max, or looking at a microscope through the maximum magnification and like picking out every little imperfection in the movie. That's not how you do it. You need a big picture perspective, or a macro level perspective, I guess. Boba was an honorable man like his father, but still vicious. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, Boba's vicious. So Disney makes him grr, I'm angry, you need to kill everyone, like you mentioned. Yeah, I mean, and I kind of got the attitude. I mean, like, you don't get that so much from the movies, because he doesn't really do much or say much in the movies. But I think with the whole introducing Jango Fett, and then having Jango Fett get killed by a Jedi, in a brutal fashion, by the way, I think they kind of set that up for him to just be like an angry. Boba's just basically like an angry little child. And you watch like the Clone Wars, the Clone Wars arcs with Boba in it, and he's like, I mean, sometimes he's like leading the bounty hunters, but like other times the bounty hunters just kind of mistreat him and are just kind of like, you're just a stupid kid, kind of at the end of the day type of thing. I mean, sometimes he's even too extreme for them. So, Boba's an interesting character. I feel Kenobi only won because he baited Anakin's rage. You can see in their battle that Anakin far outmatched Kenobi. So, KX, that's exactly what I was talking about. Essentially, Anakin was trying to force himself, not use the Force, but like just trying to use just pure aggression to overcome his disadvantaged position. So Obi-Wan was smart in that sense to bait Anakin into that position, because he knows that when you're using the dark side, you're more susceptible to those things. I mean, you look at people who are angry. I mean, people who are angry, if you try to make subtle jabs at them, I mean, you're just gonna make them more angry. They're very susceptible to those things, and so kind of with same thing with Anakin. I mean, you're just like, he's like, don't try it, and like Anakin's like, oh, you did it now, boy, you gonna get it, and tries to jump over him, and then gets his, an arm and two legs cut off. So, I mean, yeah, it's essentially like he just tries to. He's so angry, he's just trying to force it, just trying to get around Obi-Wan, and take the final blow. So obviously he lost. So, wow, you just described Jay Cutler shudders. Yeah, Jay Cutler. I'm a Broncos fan, so Jay Cutler is kind of dead to us. But yeah, pretty much just tries to force things in there. So I'm 22 and I still can't get enough Star Wars. Same. It's like it's like a lifestyle now. I mean, like, people ask me, they're like, what's your favorite movie? And I tell them, I say Blade Runner 2049. That's my favorite movie. Star Wars has transcended movies. It's a lifestyle. It's not like a fan. I mean, like, it is kind of like a fandom, but to me, it's not as deep. It's like Star Wars is a lifestyle. And I'm not saying, like, in a sense, like, that I have like all the Star Wars stuff and I'm like a super Star Wars nerd and I have a billion Star Wars shirts and like, Star Wars collectibles and all that stuff. I actually don't have a lot of Star Wars stuff, really, but it's just kind of like my world would not be as great of a place without Star Wars. I mean, I'm not saying it would be bad, but I'm just like, if Star Wars was not in my life, I would not have my life. There would not be as many good things in my life, I guess, is my point. So I'd say Django is better than Boba as well, but that's mostly because Lucas knew how to treat Django after Boba, while Boba just stood around. Django got to fight 3 Jedi. Yeah, so I mean, obviously George is going to learn from mistakes and kind of fix those things. Got to attempt an assassination and got more action scenes. Do you think Star Wars has one of the worst fandoms? Honestly, yes, I kind of do. I think it's very toxic as a fandom. I think people really don't know how to respect other people's opinions. Um, about things like, you know, um, people get so much hate for saying that they like certain things about Star Wars. Um, and I think that's terrible. The good thing is that I think is a hand harassment that she was getting on Instagram, which was complete bullshit. Um, but I think as a whole, we're getting better. It's slow. It's slow, but I think we're getting there, or at least like there's some level of acknowledgement that people understand that we as a fan base need to clean up our act. So I think I think people's attitudes are improving, obviously towards the prequels, but I think a lot of that is due to just because some people, or at least it now has become popular to hate on the new movies. So I mean, a lot of people have grievances with them, and they're legitimate grievances, and that's fine. But again, my whole point is that if you're jumping on an internet bandwagon or a bandwagon just because on the internet says this movie sucks, so I think it sucks, that's the wrong way to do it. You need to form your own opinion on the movie. You need to look beyond those things and not be biased essentially by what you read on the internet. So I think what happened with like Kelly Marie Tran was just a lot of trolls. I don't think they were Star Wars fans. I think they were just a bunch of idiots. So I mean, like we're bigger than this, guys. I think there just needs to be a positivity mindset and just understand that in Star Wars we are blessed to have not only a fandom or like a community, but a very diverse community in the sense that there are offshoots. It's not like you're just a fan of, if you're a fan of this fandom that you like everything, right? Like there's that for some like TV shows. For Star Wars, it's like there's offshoots, right? There's prequel fans like us. There's the OT fans, legitimate ones. There's people who like all the movies, like me, who like everything. There's people who just like the books, like there's Star Wars reading clubs and stuff like that. I mean, so the thing is, there's a lot to contend with. There's a lot of different opinions in Star Wars, and so I just think we need to be positive, and that's what I try to focus on my channel is Star Wars positivity and just trying to enjoy things, enjoy things the best you can. I guess is the way I try to go about things. So, like honestly, I any negative comment about Star Wars, it's not like well thought out and not like a very or doesn't not a very good feedback that's kind of just like written in anger, just delete them because we don't need negativity going around in this fandom anymore. Like I'm honestly done with it. So don't forget to stream and Jake Lloyd. Yeah, I mean same thing. And like same thing with so whenever I try to think of these people, I can never remember them. Jar Jar Binks. I know you guys you'll get it to me, but Ahmed Best. Ahmed Best, I mean, he came out and said that he was he had considered suicide at a time because just of the harassment that people were giving him. I mean, it's like, this is not like something worth, dying for. Like Star Wars is not worth dying for. I mean, some people may get shocked by that or something, but it's not that big a deal. Like we just need to chill. Like, and you need to understand that not everyone's going to like the same thing that you like, and that you shouldn't think of them as any less of a person just because they don't like the same things as you. So, period. End of story. So, you must unlearn what you have learned. Exactly. Like people saying Lucas ruined my childhood. That is like the most garbage thing ever. The only one who has and I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about those people who say that. The only people who have a problem with, or the only thing wrong, I guess, is the people who say that. Like the problem is completely their own, and it's all in their own head because they realize that, oh, this doesn't appease me. I'm the fan. I've been loyal. I've been here, for ever since the original trilogy. Blah 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 blah. They're not here to please you. That's not their goal. If you enjoy it, great. If you don't enjoy it, fine, whatever. But like they're not here to appease to the old Star Wars fans and suck up to them. with each generation, opinions change. While prequel fans are much older now, we are actually currently in the Clone Wars generation, right? And a lot of kids, who didn't get to see, think about kids born 2005, maybe even 2004, or even 2003 for that matter, who didn't get to see Revenge of the Sith because either they were too young or they just weren't born yet. A lot of them, their first exposure to Star Wars, if it wasn't in the movies, was the Clone Wars TV show that they watched on Cartoon Network. I mean, that was a big deal for a lot of them. So, now we're kind of in like essentially like another generation, which is like the whole Disney Star Wars generation thing. So, which I think they've done a very good job with getting kids interested in Star Wars, especially girls. And I mean, like, I know that, there's a lot of like people like, why are there so many, female characters, blah, 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 feminist thing, just hogwash. I mean, I think that Star Wars has been pretty devoid of lead female characters. I mean, there's definitely been good ones, obviously Padme, Leia, but I think that they needed a lot more than just those two. There needs to be more. So as a whole, or more female leads. So, but they're also like diverse too, because you have Rey, but you also have like Iden Versio and stuff like that. So, I like that they've had a diverse background of female lead characters. So, like for me as a kid, like being a boy or whatever, when I was younger. I mean, hopefully I'm a man now. I think I'm a man, but whatever. Besides the point. I think like it was hard for me to get into like female characters, mostly because they weren't the main character. They were never really portrayed as the main character. So, I think like honestly, like Rey is one of the first female lead characters that I've ever really been able to like enjoy or get into as a character. That kind of sounds weird, I know, but like I think you guys understand what I'm talking about. So Jyn is definitely like actually Kira might be my favorite female lead character, followed closely by Jyn. I don't know, it may be different on a different day, but like Star Wars has really like started to get me now into like being able to enjoy female characters. Like I collect Rey Funko Pops, but I'm weird because I only collect Rey Funko Pops with her having a lightsaber, which is just kind of odd. So I only have 2 of them, but just kind of like one of those like just like small things. So Jocasta Nu, haha, yeah. I mean, yeah, but I mean like and Disney's making them more badass. So like Jocasta Nu was kind of just a side character, brush off. Don't have to remember her. Disney made her into like a serious badass. So, and I agree with your generation analysis there. So, cough, cough, Ahsoka. Yeah, I mean, Ahsoka, I shouldn't say that Disney really has, they're definitely not the first, like they're not the original. Ahsoka was definitely there, but I think she's still not like a lead character. I mean, I haven't taken an English class in forever. I'm in a STEM major right now, but so I don't remember the whole like primary, secondary thing, whatever. I think she's definitely like a main character, but she's not as much of a lead character as like Obi-Wan or Anakin are, especially because she's a Padawan learner. So I think like having characters who are independent or independent female characters is important. So difference between having badass females and posting agendas. Look at Alita Battle Angel. I have not seen that movie, so I would not know, honestly, Betsy. For me, the 2003 Clone Wars micro series gave us great strong female characters such as Shakti. She kicked so much Magna Guard ass trying to protect the Chancellor. Yeah, that's a really cool scene too and stuff like that. So also I'm not done yet, but I'm currently watching your 2003 Clone Wars videos. Oh, thanks, KX. Yeah, I think I did those with my roommate pretty much around this time last year. So it was just kind of like a fun little project because I was like, oh, I haven't watched these in a while, and my roommate is a big Star Wars fan, so I was like, well, hey, let's watch these and do a commentary and post on YouTube. So hopefully you're enjoying it, KX. It seems like you are because you're watching the whole thing. So, but thank you for watching. So. But for those, for everyone, I guess we got like 5 minutes, I guess. But who are your favorite female lead or just female characters in general? Yeah, it's great to see you and your roommate's opinion on things. Yeah, I mean, my roommate has, has a different perspective than me. So I think that's what's nice about bringing other people on. So I think I'm trying to I'm talking to him about possibly coming on a live stream at some point. It may be next week, but we'll see. So hard to choose. I can't choose. Shakti, Ayla Secura, Padme. Okay, so what about favorite female characters from the 3 eras? So you got prequel era, original trilogy, sequel era, whatever. I mean, or in between, because like Kira's like in between. And prequel definitely for me is Padme, so that's a pretty obvious one, I think. I think Ahsoka would probably be second for there. And then probably I would say I'd put Kira in the prequel band camp just because it's like pre-original trilogy. So, and then OT I'd probably say Jin, Leia, and then Iden Versio. And for the sequel trilogy, I would say Rey number 1. Rey, and then who else do we have? Rey. Rey. I liked Admiral Holdo actually. She was pretty badass. And then Rose. Rogue One is a prequel. Yeah, I know it's so close. I don't know. I like a lot of them. So Holdo, yeah, I know. A lot of people have issues with Holdo. I had a lot of issues with Holdo because I could never, for the life of me, understand why she wouldn't want to tell Poe Dameron about what the heck was going on with the plan. But there's some good videos out there, Batsy, on explaining a lot of that stuff, or like justifying it. So if you're interested in a different perspective and, want to, see things from the other point of view, definitely go check those out. So I prefer Rogue 1.65382. Okay. I think what was it? What would be Rogue 1.5 or 1.65382? That'd be like Return of the Jedi, or that'd be like Empire. Probably be like Return of the Jedi. Prequel Shakti, original Juno, Eclipse. Sequel, honestly, can't find one I like. That's fine. It's not a big deal. So I just want to get my point out there about female lead characters. So, or independent lead characters. So, man, I'll tell you guys, the time flies on these live streams. So I'm really enjoying them. So, thanks for coming and all that stuff. I like talking to you guys. So really glad I decided to do this. It was kind of like one of those things or epiphanies I had. I was like, oh, I should do live streams because it's like, I'd love to make 2 videos per week, ideally. But because I'm in school and I have a lot of work to do, I don't have a lot of time. So I can really only make 1 per week. So doing these live streams is nice because I can also interact more directly with you guys and make 2 videos per week. So time flies when you're having fun. I'll catch you next time. Seems to be the same time every week. 8 p.m. KX, it's the same time every week. So thanks for joining. Good to see you guys again. So Joey, may the force be with you and have a good rest of your week. Stay tuned for a video on Friday as per usual. So, but LOL, I guess Rogue One itself is Star Wars 3.9. Yeah, I think it's like, I guess we're going to be like Star Wars 3.99, 3.95, something like that. I remember when it was coming out, people were like, oh, it's Star Wars 3.5. And it says it's like right before A New Hope. So I'm like, it's not really 3.5. It's like 3.95, something like that, So, all right. Thanks for coming, Batsy. Good to see you. Yeah. I mean, that's something like that. Yeah. So it is a good tie-in. Definitely not. Yeah, no, it's definitely not 3.5. It's does a good job of tying into New Hope. So I think I mentioned this in one of the previous live streams, but like one thing I've always wanted to do, never have done it yet, is watch Rogue One and New Hope back to back. I think it'd be kind of weird because you watch a movie that came out in 2016, followed directly by a movie that came out in 1977, and you can definitely tell that there was a large budget difference between Empire and A New Hope. So, you know, in terms of the effects and stuff, even after they, you know, after they, whatever you call it, touched up the movies or whatever, you can still tell A New Hope had a lot less money going into it. So I think it'd be just kind of weird that way, but I think as a story, it would be interesting. So, okay, guys, it's 9 o'clock. So we're going to wrap up the live stream. So video should be out on Friday. And yeah, other than that, have a great rest of your week. And may the Force be with you always. And I'm going to click the end stream button right there. And bye-bye.